just starting a new line of work or starting their nanny business. They feel guilty because they don't want to charge too much, or they feel guilty because they have to charge people at all, which is crazy. Today we're going to talk about all of you nannies out there who feel guilty that they're charging too much. Trust me, changing your viewpoint in this area will make a huge difference in the success of your nanny business. My name is RAINEY, and this is Oh So Simply. Don't feel guilty for charging for your services. First of all, it's important to remember that you're a professional who's getting paid to provide a service. Just like any other paid professional charges for their service, doesn't feel guilty for it. You think about it. If you were to go into a restaurant and you order from the menu, you see the prices there, you know what the prices are, they know what the prices are, and you pay them, they don't feel guilty for asking you to pay those prices. Even if you go into a pizza place and you're like, a pizza, they're like $5 ingredients, and they end up charging you $30 for that pizza, they feel zero guilt, okay? So you don't have to feel any guilt for charging for your services either. Another thing I really want you guys to remember is that you are bringing so much value to the family by taking care of their kids. Most people will say that their kids are their number one priority, their whole world. Remember, you're taking care of their whole world. It's okay to recognize how much they value their children and value the care that you'll be giving their children. It's super important to not undercut yourself. Don't undercharge for this. Feel confident and know your value and your worth that you're bringing. That value, you may be asking, well, what sort of value do I bring? Like, really, I'm just watching their kids. You guys, you're not just watching their kids. You're protecting them, you're educating them, you're making the household livable and clean and organized. You're usually cooking, doing a bunch of stuff for the family overall. You're bringing the value of a mom or a dad if you're a nanny. I often tell people you are the mom when the mom's working out of the house, or you are the dad when the dad is working out of the house. You're replacing their parents for the day. You're taking on that role, and so you're doing everything that's included. And you just think about it for a moment. You think about all of the movies that you've ever seen where the mom is like, I'm a stay-at-home mom, and they go on and on about how long their day was because the dad has said something stupid like, oh, well, you are not out of the house working all day. And then the mom gets super upset, and it goes on and on about all of the stuff that she deals with the kids and taking care of the house and doing everything behind the scenes. You think how much she would be charging for those services if she could? You're doing those same services, so charge for them. It's totally fine. With that being said, sometimes you present a price and the family just thinks that it's too high. That's okay. There are people who will be willing to pay for the value that you're going to bring to their household. So it's okay to walk away from those jobs. Now, sometimes I understand that you're scared because you don't know if you're going to get another job opportunity. Maybe you're limited in your experience, and so you feel like, oh, but they'll take me even with the experience that I have, just at a lower rate. Don't undersell yourself. Like, honestly, there is always someone out there who's willing to pay you what you deserve to be paid. You just have to find that right job. If you need help with that, definitely reach out to me, and I will put out my feelers and help you find a job that will recognize how much value you bring. But don't just settle. Don't settle. The same way you wouldn't settle for anything else in life, don't settle for the pay that you're getting. Another thing that you could do, for example, if you do feel like this is the only job opportunity I'm ever going to get, these are the only people who are ever going to take me on this early in my career, what you can do is you can either offer to reduce your hours and services, or you walk away. You can offer like, hey, maybe I can work fewer hours, but at the rate that I'm asking. Or you can offer, I'm willing to do for cheaper, I'm willing to go lower on my price, but I'm not going to be cooking, I'm not going to be cleaning, I'm simply going to be here with your child. So those are kind of your two things. You either reduce your services or you reduce the amount of hours that you're willing to work if they can't meet what you're asking rate-wise. It's just important to not lower your rate, because when you do, you start devaluing yourself and the work that you bring to the table. And it's honestly just a slippery slope, because you might think, for an example, they took me for $12 an hour, which is less than minimum wage, but like, it's fine. And then the next one is like, oh, well, they want me for $10. It's only $2 less an hour than the job I was at, and that was making me enough money to get by. You start depreciating yourself, and you start just accepting anything. And at that point, it's like, that's almost half of minimum wage in a lot of places. Like, that's crazy. So just remember to think about it from all aspects. You can lower your hours or take on less hours, or you can give less services, but don't lower your rate. Another thing I want you guys to think about and not feel guilty for is walking away. I was recently in a job. It was so stressful. It was stressful to the point that I couldn't eat. I was nauseous. I couldn't sleep all the way through the night. I couldn't even bring myself to journal, which is something that I truly enjoy doing. When you are in a stressful situation at work, it makes the rest of your life pretty unbearable and pretty miserable. If you find yourself in a job that is stressful because you're not getting enough money, or is stressful because you're getting enough money but you're being like way overworked, you just have way too many hours, or they have way too high of expectations for services that you're providing, if at any point you're just way overwhelmed, it's okay to walk away. Any other person in any other job would do it. It's okay to walk away. The kids will still love you as a nanny. They will not be upset. They will not feel resentful. The family, they might be a little frustrated at the beginning because they're losing a nanny, but ultimately they're going to respect more the next nanny that comes through, because they're going to recognize that that's why you left, is that they were doing those things to you. Super important to walk away from stressful situations. Don't let your job take away your joy, especially because a lot of us are in nannying for the love of nannying. We love the kids, we love the families. So when that love goes away, it's time to move on, because you don't want to lose that love for your entire career. So that kind of goes hand in hand with the idea that just because you love them doesn't mean they don't have to pay you. A lot of times they start getting comfortable, like your family will start getting comfortable with you being around as a nanny. They'll ask you for favors here and there. Can you stay extra late tonight? Can you take a pay cut? Can I maybe pay you in a couple of weeks? I'm not saying there's anything wrong with any of those things. It just depends on how often they start to happen. Sometimes, yeah, their paycheck gets delayed, so it makes sense that my paycheck's gonna get delayed, and I'm usually okay with that. And it's also okay to say no. If at any point you're like, oh, actually I won't be able to pay my rent on time, you can say, hey, I can't pay my rent on time if that happens, so maybe you could just give me the money that I need to pay for rent, or, which is partial, so that's still fair, or no, I need it all right now, and that's okay to ask and to express your needs in that way. The point is, it's natural that they start feeling more comfortable and start taking more advantage of you. I'm not saying that all families will do that, but it happens sometimes just because they're unaware that they're taking advantage, because they just feel like you're a part of the family. And we all know that we kind of treat family unfairly compared to how we treat everyone else in the world, because we just expect them to give more. It can kind of happen that way in a nanny-family relationship, and it's important to know that and to know your boundaries and your limits and just say, that's not okay, or you still have to pay me, or my overtime rate is this. All of those things are in your contract, so you can just point to it and not have any hard feelings either way. And the last thing that I think you should not feel guilty about, even a little bit, is the separation between paid and unpaid time as a nanny. I will say that this particular point I want to even more heavily emphasize for any au pairs that are watching this, or live-in nannies, because you guys are in the same space as your families, which makes it harder to separate out the times. Whereas for me, when I go into a nanny house, a family that I'm nannying for, when I go into their house, I'm obviously nannying. When I leave their house, I'm obviously not nannying. Or if I go there on a weekend knowing that I'm staying for dinner, I'm obviously not counting that time. Or, after technically my shift would end, but now I'm staying for dinner. So it's pretty clear for me, but sometimes with au pairs and live-in nannies, things can get a little bit gray or fuzzy. You have to make it a point to be clear with your time, your boundaries of time. I believe I talked about this in another article where I mentioned if the family comes home early, starts coming home early on a regular basis, what you should do and how that can be in your contract. So it kind of works that way too. Maybe you're staying after for dinner. You're like, oh, don't worry, you don't have to pay me for this time. It works the same way as if they came home early and now they're staring at you and they're like, I'm not paying you for this time. And you're like, what? I'm still supposed to be here. Like, I have a certain amount of hours that I'm allowed to work so that I can make my bills at the end of the month. So it kind of works both ways. Know when you're on the clock and when you're off the clock. Don't feel guilty if you're on the clock with the kids. It's your job. You shouldn't feel guilty for that. also know when you can be off the clock and just have fun. If you ever get asked to do things that are gonna be off the clock for you and you just don't have the time, you don't have to feel guilty. They want to invite you over for dinner, that's swell. Maybe you don't have the time, maybe you already have other plans. It's okay to tell them no. You don't have to do extra with them. I do encourage you to do extra with them when you can, because it'll just build a relationship between you and the kids and you and the parents and make it a better working relationship. But when you can't, or if you're exhausted and you don't want to and you're not going to be at your best, it's okay to say no. Point being, this whole article is to just encourage you guys to not feel guilty. And if you start feeling guilty, ask yourself why. And from there, find a solution. If you guys feel guilty for any other reasons, feel free to leave questions about things that you're starting to feel guilty about, whether or not you should feel guilty about them. We're all friends here. We're all nannies. So feel free to leave a comment down below with any questions that you have about that. Subscribe down below as well for notifications for our next article, which will be Friday because we post every Friday. I hope this really helped. If you have any other questions, if you have off the cusp questions about other things, feel free to leave those down there too. Okay, see you later.